Good morning, Todd. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing really fine, man. I'm Bill Hernandez. I'm the editor at rockbandreviews.com here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we're real excited to have you back in town again at the Broward Center for the Performing Arts next Wednesday for the Utopia Tour. You must be really excited.
Well, we have yet to actually step on stage, so we're excited and we're apprehensive and all at the same time.
Now, how did the idea for Utopia come about? I mean, why now?
Well, the idea has been there. It's just been hanging out there for years. The fans have constantly reminded us that they would like to see the band possibly reform. And it wasn't any one particular thing. It was just kind of like endless persistence of a number of entities trying to make it happen. A lot of it had to do with timing and overcoming some, unforeseen circumstances here and there. We had discussed it at other points, and we even at one point in the early 90s reformed the band, but we only did a 2-week tour of Japan, and decided after that that we weren't really ready to continue. But yeah, there is not like a single thing that I could put my finger on that, that decided that it would happen now. It's more or less fate, I guess.
Now, although you guys didn't maybe feel you were ready in Japan, how was the fan response?
We had a good tour there, as a matter of fact. We did do a warm-up gig in California, and that wasn't. We were pretty sloppy, and we were too loud. But
hey, in my opinion, there's never anything wrong with too loud when it comes to music, man.
Yeah, well, that's an argument we may get from our sound man.
Now, of course,
saying, turn it down, it's too loud, I can't mix.
Oh, that makes sense, sure. Now, of course, you guys are going to be doing all the Utopia stuff and everything. Is there any original material that you guys have put together for this tour?
We had a hard enough time learning all of the stuff.
I could imagine.
That we already had recorded. Unlike any other Utopia tour, which usually would focus on whatever our latest release was and then include some fan favorites and stuff, we are covering the entire history of the band from the first record to the last. So it's been a lot of territory to cover and a lot of material to learn. Which is why, there's, at this point, until we actually get on stage and attempt to do it, we have no idea what's going to come out.
Well, that's good. You want to keep everybody surprised for every show,
Yeah, well, it's not as if we change the set every night.
Yeah.
We want people to be able to hear their favorites in there. And we made, an attempt to try and figure out all the songs that people would expect to hear at a Utopia reunion. We've gotten certainly suggestions from people they'd like to hear, but some of it is a little bit too obscure, I think, for the larger audience, and then some of it maybe is not, but doesn't necessarily fit into what we're trying to present here. We've had people want to hear, like, Deface the Music, but I think that's a little obscure for most fans.
Well, I tell you, I was 4 years old when Utopia formed. Do you find that even when you go out as, yourself, like the White Knight album and everything else, do you find that you see a lot of the younger generation in the audience?
It's been happening, the past couple of years. It's kind of it's a natural phenomenon in some ways, but you have to encourage it. You have to be willing to do stuff that a younger audience might be interested in. There's always like a generation or a subset of a generation who's interested in music from another time. Like, for instance, the Lemon Twigs, who I've done a little bit of work with lately, their influences are all from like the 70s.
Yeah.
And earlier, you know, it's like Queen and the Beatles and things like that. So often we see a younger audience simply out of, you know, curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're there because their parents, you know, forced them to listen while they were still in the womb. And they, and so it's like, you know, kind of like they just can't help themselves. So we do see like families and stuff like that. But there is also, I think, a generation of listeners who are, you know, who are interested in the music itself, where it's going, you know, what the possibilities are, and the fact that such elderly people are playing it gives it some appeal. You know, it's like when Tony Bennett became popular again.
Yes.
You can't do it with your original audience because they're all, you know, elderly and dead. They
Sure.
don't go out to shows anymore. They don't buy records anymore. So if you survive in the music business, you have to kind of turn your audience over.
Yeah, and I'm finding that with movies nowadays, especially with like the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, you know, you have these movies that are drawing such a young audience, but yet when you look at the soundtrack, I mean, they're playing all these great 70s hits, you know, Fleetwood Mac and things like that, that these kids are watching this movie and may not necessarily be exposed to it, because it's so hard these days to turn on the radio and find a really good classic rock station without going into, let's say, Sirius or something like that, and specifically looking for a station. So I think these movies that are bringing back these great soundtracks with songs from the 70s, and, you know, kids are watching the movie, so they have to sit there and listen to this music in the background, and they're saying, hey, this is some pretty good shit we got going here. Let's check it out. And they go a little further and further, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's a good way to, you know, cross-pollinate the, you know, musical generations and things like that. It is true that terrestrial radio has been kind of in turmoil. You know, part of it is the response to satellite radio and internet radio, but also the fact that they don't have the relationship that they used to have with record labels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there used to be a very intimate thing where labels would, you know, promote through and in concert with, especially, you know, what they call the primary radio stations, you know, the radio stations that get you on the charts and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand, you know, that the charts don't mean a whole lot anymore, because it's hard to measure how people are finding out about music and how they're listening to it, since everyone's, you know, got their own devices and subscription services and things like that.
Yeah.
So you never know whether you can find the advertising to keep something like, let's say, a good oldies station on the air. But, you know, Sirius Radio, at least to their credit, does cover all of those genres in one way or another. You know, it's just you know, you have to have it to listen to it.
Absolutely. Now, I have my vinyl copy of White Knight that we had you sign at one of the signings that you did last year, I think it was. And, I mean, just the lineup on this album. I mean, you have Joe Walsh, Trent Reznor, Satriani, Donald Fagen, Daryl Hall and such. Was it difficult to get these guys to participate for this album?
Actually, no. I had a bigger list even than, you know, what appeared on the record. Mm-hmm. And some of them just, you know, some of the participants just didn't have a window so that they could respond in time for the record to come out. But I've continued to do collaborations. I've you know, several more that I've got in the works right now. And maybe by the end of the year I'll have enough for a whole other record.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make, because you never know sometimes what you're going to get from somebody. melodies except for Tinfoil Hat with Donald Fagen.
Yeah.
Almost every song was done remotely, so you never knew what the other person was thinking. You know,
Yeah.
I would send a song out to someone, and they would work on it and send it back to me, and I go, oh, that's interesting. Or they would send me a song that they'd like gotten to a dead end on, and I would put new, fresh ears on it or something like that, and it would surprise them what I would hear. So it's actually a lot more fun than you would think. You kind of imagine that you're sitting down in the studio with somebody trying to come up with a song together, and you know most collaborators doesn't work that way. It can take hours and hours, sometimes days, you know, for that kind of thing to work itself out.
Yeah.
But this was, you know, fun and interesting for everybody, and I really enjoyed it, and it helps expand the audience. So I think I may do more of it.
Well, it's definitely a fantastic album, and if there's sort of like a part 2 down the road, that would be even more better, man.
Cool.
I tell you, I first saw you last year at the Parker Playhouse when you were here, and you took the stage, and you have that big screen behind you that it's almost like a 3D effect. I have never seen that in a show before, and that was phenomenal. I mean, good thing I didn't smoke any shit before I went to your show, because I would have been transported back to the 60s, even though I wasn't born then. I would have knew exactly what it was like to feel like to be in that time. But that's just an amazing effect you have back there, and it made for an even more better show, you know?
Yeah, well, we were doing something that was, you know, with the White Knight Tour, it's more of a theatrical presentation than a concert in that sense. You know, I don't talk to the audience much. We really kind of put the material together in a way that is almost like acts in a play. And so the screen allowed us to kind of change the set in a way, you know, to have all sorts of different things. And yeah, it was a very interesting approach to have the 2 video screens and the band sandwiched in between. Not something we would even have been technically able to do back in the early days.
Yeah.
But, you know, I did pay a price for it. I lost money on that tour because it was a really expensive show to put on. And we stripped it down a little bit when we went out again at the end of the year. But we're back with the big production for Utopia. We've got a gigantic video wall at this point.
Nice. Hey, whether you lost money or whatever, that show is going to stick in the back of my mind for the rest of my life. I mean, it was just phenomenal. It was fantastic.
Terrific. Well, that's the point.
Exactly. Now
that's
you're
why you do it.
Now you're a musician, but your voice is also your instrument. Do you do anything while on tour to maintain your vocals?
I just try and get as much sleep as I can. And the worst thing for your voice and your health in general is if you don't get enough sleep on the road, because I burn myself out pretty well during a show, and at that point, you know, I have to remember not to try and talk too much afterwards to go into rest mode, and then to get as much sleep as I possibly can before the next show. Otherwise, I don't do any sort of exercises or anything like that. It's just managed to hold up without me having to sweat it too badly.
Now, at these upcoming shows for the Utopia tour, will there be any vinyl or CDs? Will you have a merch table set up?
Yeah, there will be a merch table set up. I know that they put out that there's a new box set that essentially is all of the. I'm not sure if it's every single thing, but there's also some bonus live stuff in there. So there's a box set. There's the usual stuff you would expect at a reunion tour. We've got a program with a whole retrospective in it and that sort of stuff. So yes, we have the merch.
Good. Consider them sold, because I like to buy a lot of that stuff. And if we can get you to sign some of that, if you recall, we recently had the tragedy with the Parkland school shooting, which is pretty much 20 minutes from the venue where you're going to be performing next week. And on May 16th, there will be a benefit concert here in Pompano Beach. We've got Foreigner to donate a signed guitar and a bunch of stuff. Hard Rock Hotel has donated some stuff. I have some personal guitars that are signed we're going to donate. And if we could bring a guitar back, as well as purchase some of the merchandise, we'd love to donate that stuff in your name as well if you would like to participate.
We can do that. Work it out through Paul and Eric's office.
All right.
We'll get that taken care of.
All right, great. And so once you're done with the Utopia tour, what's next? What's coming up in the future?
I've got a bunch of events through the summer and fall. I turned 70 this year, and the fans have requested that I have an event similar to when I turned 60. We had a event out in Kauai where I live. We called it Todd Stock, and essentially it's just, we camp out and build our own little community for a week or so. So when this tour is over, we get a couple of days off to organize ourselves, and then we go to Virginia to do the first Todd Stock event. That'll last about a week, and then I go to Europe for a little bit of vacationing, and then we do an event in Scotland called Todd Scott, and that'll be for the European fans.
Wow.
Then I got some time during the summer. I'll likely work on more music and stuff. I don't play much through the summer. Later towards the fall, we'll have another event in California for sort of more West Coast fans, and then we go to Australia and have a Toddaroo event down there.
Oh my Lord!
And that'll take us up to that's in October, I guess, and then I'll probably be doing something towards the end of some playing towards the end of the year.
Wonderful. It's glad to hear that you're really super busy and there's a lot that your fans can look forward to. And again, we're looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday, April 25th, at the Broward Center for the Performing Arts for the Utopia Tour. Looking forward to it, buddy.
Terrific. We'll see you then.
All right. Safe travels on the road.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Cheers.